Welcome to r/Pettyrevenge, where we share stories of intense payback for someone being wronged. And today's first story is, Karen gets mad at the way I bag her clothes. Hi all. First time posting a story, forgive me for any formatting errors. Also dyslexic, so don't expect too much with grammar. Also sorry for the length, I tend to be long-winded I guess. I used to work at a discount department store, the name rhymes with boss. If you're unfamiliar, we buy the clothes from the big stores that don't sell and we sell it for a fraction of the price. We actually had some decent stuff that was priced close to thrift store. The thing is, they make their money by understaffing and hoping to sell high volume. As we were understaffed, we didn't do the fancy folding and boxing that you might see at a Macy's, just a normal plastic bag like a grocery store. This story begins during the holidays when all retail is a nightmare. I was cashier and trying as hard as I could to get people through the long line, having worked 8 hours with no breaks. Remember, understaffed, when this woman takes a giant cartload of clothes, think 3 pile of clothes, and throws it on the counter. I start trying to untangle this giant mess she made and scanning her items in. When I ask if they found everything all right, she cuts me off and says, "Can we hurry this up? I've got important things to take care of and I don't have all day to be here." Now it was 10:30 p.m., 22:30 for you across the pond, on a Tuesday, so I can't imagine what big time events she was planning at being at. Then she looks down and practically scream, "What the F you oaf, you're going to ruin everything. Take everything out of the bag and feed them nice." Now a couple things here, I'm a big dude. At the time I was 19 and only working there cause I lost my college football scholarship for D-line due to injury. Think 6'4", 330 pounds, and could run the 40 in 5.0, so not a flabby 330. Also, when I put clothes in the bag, I was a bit nicer than my co-workers. I tended to do the half-loose fold and set them in the bag. Nothing fancy, but trying to not seem aggressive. Again, big dude, so it's easy for people to assume aggressive. I was completely thrown off when she yelled. At this point I'd dealt with annoying people but not a full Karen. I've generally always been able to keep composure, so I took a breath and calmly told her, "I'm sorry ma'am, but we don't do folding here. That tends to be more of a Macy's thing. I'm trying to be respectful of your purchase though, I promise." Still unhappy, she then utters the song of her people, "I want to talk to your manager. I don't like your attitude." Luckily I had my favorite shift on duty that night who I had to call over, which sucked with this giant line of people backing up. She came over and told the lady the same thing, that we don't fold clothes and we try to be careful. Karen then wants my job for ruining her clothes and a discount for having to deal with this S. My manager just tells her she does not see anything wrong, but she'll go over to CCTV later, her way of getting rid of them. I then give her the total and she pays, complaining the whole time. She then takes the bags and dumps them back on the counter, looks right at me and starts folding her clothes neatly one by one. At this point I was done. I was so tired and annoyed, but there was nothing I could do. She just stood there and folded each thing. Remember, she had a 3-pile worth of clothes. After 10 minutes of my manager and I trying to get her to leave and her not letting up touch her clothes without her slapping our hands away and yelling at other customers who tried working around her, she was done and left. Here comes the petty revenge, emphasis on the petty. About a week later she comes in again with another, slightly smaller, pile of clothes. She plops her clothes down and says, "I hope you learn to fold clothes." This automatically puts me on edge. I look at her, take her stuff, scan it all through and shove it all in one bag as one giant mass, set it on the counter. This time she grabs it, calls me a few choice words and leaves. I then send a message to all my coworkers about her and that they should do the same. A few weeks later and I see her go through another line and my coworker shoves all her stuff in a bag. This kept up every time she came in and every time I'd see her get huffy and walk off. I know it's not some big amazing payoff, but to know that every time she came in she would leave annoyed with her bagging. She still yelled at us all for anything and everything, but we always had that nice little F you as she left. Again, sorry about the length, but it's nice having a place to put this story. Okay, now for the top comments for this post. I don't understand why she always returns to the store, if she is obviously very unhappy with the service. Some people just want to make their own and other people's life miserable. It's because it's the only place she can pretend to have any power over anyone else. It's why she shops there. She can scream at them and condescend to them as much as she wants and they can't do anything back if they want to keep their jobs. My guess is both at work and at home she gets treated in a very similar manner, so she comes to Ross so she can say, "At least I'm not them. I get paid way more than they do, so I'm better." It's about her lack of any power in her own life. I don't allow others to treat me like garbage, so I'd never dream of going into a retail store or restaurant and treating someone else badly. I don't need to. I have power in my own life. Honestly, it's hard to beat the prices, especially for the quality of product. I'm assuming she moved close, and to go to another location is annoying. Plus I'm assuming she goes through life like this, so I'm sure everywhere she goes is a similar situation. So I'm sure I do this at work with a certain kind of political merch. Can't damage the merch without the risk of getting fired. So shoved in the corner of a bin, and heavily wrinkled it is. Inconvenience the customer that supports that as much as I can. Lol. Yes, it's meant to be petty. This woman is obviously very unhappy and thinks she can get away with treating those who serve her like poop. I wonder what she's been secretly fed at the restaurants she goes to. As the saying goes, you can tell a person by the way they treat staff members. Never treat food staff like poop, as you can't see what they're doing behind the closed doors. Nor can you hear what they're telling each other. Okay, now time for story 2. How many times do I have to explain it to you? I'm not afraid of snow, you jerk. Background. When I was younger, I had a person in my life I called my wicked stepfather, not to his face, that would have caught me a beating, of course. Wicked stepfather was an awful person and a horrible step-parent. There was never any effort to endear himself to me. I was a small thing to lord over, using his size and authority to torment me any way he could think of. Emotional, verbal, physical abuse. You name it, he probably did it or used the threat of doing it to torment me. I got constant threats of violence for things like drinking a soda a friend was nice enough to buy me after school. He controlled everything I was allowed to eat or drink. If I didn't like something he cooked for dinner, even if I didn't speak up and just was obviously struggling to eat it or being slow, he would ask me if I didn't like it, and if I answered honestly, he'd get an evil grin. The next day he'd cook a double or quadruple batch of whatever it was and we would eat it all week long. If I lied, he'd cook it up badly so it was even harder to get down. I was only to speak when spoken to, and if I broke this rule, it was instant verbal/emotional attack. He would find some flaw about myself, preferably one I already disliked, of course, and he'd go on some hour-long rant about what a piece of crap I was, and if I wouldn't speak up, maybe no one would notice how awful I was. The man actively looked for ways to torture me, and I actively worked my hardest to avoid him every chance I got. Which, unfortunately, wasn't often. He was not, in short, the kind of person I wanted to spend a 6-hour movie marathon seated next to. The story. At some point around age 10 or 11, I developed this recurring nightmare. Small, round, furry beasts called, in my dream, snowballs would attack some gathering I was at and kill everyone. Not just kill them. Pick over their bodies until everyone was just bloody skeletons with bits of flesh hanging off. I don't know if I saw the Critters movies or trailers first, or if someone else just brought the same nightmare to life. But if you've ever seen the Critters movies, imagine those just white. And the ones in my nightmares were more teeth, less face. One night was a particularly bad one. I was having a birthday party, and as I sat in front of my cake on the porch in a backyard, the snowballs came out of the tree line and attacked everyone from behind. It was a massacre. I watched it all in horror as the white wall slowly turned red and kept rolling at me. In the dream, I always woke up right when they got to my feet. Right before I felt the first bite. This time, looking around at everyone I loved, even my cats, picked over. I woke up screaming. Wicked stepfather heard and came in to see what all the fuss was about. I tried to explain it to him, but all he heard was snowballs. For the next year, he teased me about snowballs. And when we got our first snow, he dragged me to the window and laughed. "Oh no! It's snowing. Ha ha ha. Better not go outside. The snowballs will get you." "I'm not afraid of snow," I barked back at him. "They're not made of snow." Still, he insisted on teasing me anytime it came to mind for him and there was snow to point at. Finally one day they announced a movie marathon. All 3 Critters movies were playing back to back on one of our 6 channels. Yeah, remember back when you had to wait for things to just come around in the cycle of being shown? By now, I had seen at least one movie and knew they were the same thing as my nightmares. But by now, he had also scared most of my confidence out of me with daily tortures. So it was a bit of a miracle I worked up the nerve to insist he sit down and watch all 3 movies back to back with me. And to his credit, he did, but I vaguely recall he liked horror movies anyways. We watched all 3 and I kept reminding him. "That's what I dream about, only they're white. That's what I see, only it's mom whose body is laying dead like that. That's why I wake up screaming. Imagine that were mom with her face peeled off." I wanted him to sympathize. I wanted him to understand how horrific this was for 11-year-old me when this nightmare came along. Especially being recurring. I always knew what was about to happen, but I could never stop it. He stopped teasing me. But he was especially cruel over the next couple weeks. Finally, Fearing it was going to come to some kind of head, I brought things up to my mom. Afraid she'd mention it to him, I tried to be subtle and asked her why he seemed extra cranky lately. Her response made me laugh so hard, it hurt. It was something like, "Oh, he hasn't slept in weeks. Nightmares. Something about critters, but I don't know what he's talking about. He won't say what kind of critters. He just keeps saying critters like I know which ones. Raccoons or squirrels, I assume?" I never told him I knew. He'd have beaten me for throwing it in his face. Or found a way to slowly torture me until he forgot why I was being punished. It was easier to just save that little gem in my memory and pull it out to shine it up and give myself a smile of the days when he was being especially evil. Critters is probably the only horror movie that makes me smile. Well, that and Tremors. I mean, come on. It's Tremors. Okay, now for the top comments for this post. I'd ask how your mother let that continue, but I've been in the same boat. Love really is blind. More so when it's hurting their own children, it seems. I have very specific reasons to be scared of horror movies or in fact anything remotely scary. Hell, Beetlejuice gave me major nightmares. Nightmare Before Christmas, Signs, Coraline, all are a major nope for me. A few years ago, someone new joined my friend group and found out. They proceeded to bring it up and make fun of me every chance they got until the unofficial queen bee of our group, who was privy to the reasons for my fears, told them to STFU. When they asked for reasons, they were told the reasons were my own, I refused to share, and they had no need for them. I have been truly blessed by friends who know and love me and are fiercely protective, haha. Please tell me that convincing him to watch horror movies was not the full extent of your revenge. It seems too mild a response to a heinous child abuser. I sincerely hope that you have nothing to do with him now. That wasn't even intended as revenge. I just wanted him to understand that it wasn't literal snow I was afraid of. The inadvertent revenge was him getting nightmares about the exact thing he had teased me about. I have nothing to do with him now. Happily married to a man that is not abusive, smile. Okay, now time for story 3. Do you want it all for yourself? So take it. I used to share an apartment with some guys because of uni. For more than a year it went well, but one of the guys had to leave and we had to look after someone to fill his spot. I found someone. It was a cool looking guy and soon he moved. Okay, no problems until here, but he was a little annoying. He had an Audi and couldn't stop talking about cars, gym and about the girls that he dated. One more problem, he made a huge mess of the house, every week. After some months, the other guy left the apartment to live somewhere else, so it was just me and the annoying guy. We found one more guy to fill the spot but he stayed just a month with us and so did I. I used to stay at the living room. All I had there was my small desk, my computer and a broken chair that I used to put my stuff. One day, after I left for the weekend, he complained about my stuff in the chair, said that he brought a girl and he felt ashamed for the mess that I left and demanded me to put it somewhere else, even though the apartment was always dirty and messy because of him. It was outrageous and I declined to move my stuff. Some days after this he took my stuff and left on my bed. So I took his stuff that was on my wardrobe and put on his bed. He later called me saying that the wardrobe was his he bought from the first guy that left, and his stuff would be placed wherever he likes. Okay, I moved his stuff back to the wardrobe, but I wasn't comfortable living in a place that I don't feel like home. I started to look after somewhere to move. I finally found a house where some students lived and it was managed by the mother of one of them. I visited and scheduled to move the next week. The annoying guy works 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and used to arrive at 6 p.m. So I moved just before he arrived. Took all my stuff, paid the rent and left. When everything was set and I had already moved, I left a message on our WhatsApp group. He tried to call me but I declined. He proceeded to curse at me in the group and I just left it. He was deeply annoyed by it. The other guy left days later and he had to pay for the apartment all by himself. Later I learned that he moved somewhere else and I hope to never see him again. Okay, now time for story 4, Cruel Secret Santa Present. This happened a few years ago. Most of the office are part of larger teams with same reporting line and there are a few smaller teams with random reporting lines. I fall under the latter. Colleagues in the smaller teams clubbed together and started our own Secret Santa with a £10 limit and 20 names in the hat. I happened to pick out an awkward and obnoxious colleague who would take the piss at every give opportunity. He's also a football fan. Called me out on a few occasions and knowingly stitched me up where I couldn't retaliate. Fast forward to Pettyrevenge, gift time. We all met in a meeting at the office, enjoyed a glass or 3 of bubbly and nibbles. All the gifts were handed out and I sat opposite the obnoxious one. He insisted gifts should be opened in order of those sat on his side of the table. He would be the third one to open his gift. As he gleefully started to open his gift, I had to avoid eye contact in order of giving the game away. The delight in eyes soon vanished and replaced with horror and anguish as he held in his hands an Arsenal Football Club calendar, year annual, and a mug. As others laughed, he sullenly stood up and walked out of the room, crestfallen with his tail between his legs. He happens to support Tottenham Hotspurs, North London rivals of Arsenal. Yes, I know this was cruel, but it's a mere smidge compared to his shenanigans. The following year, he opted out of Secret Santa. Edit. Oh wow. Thank you so much for the awards. Now for the top comments for this post. My partner decided that for his office Secret Santa he would get a nice photo frame, and put an obnoxious picture of himself in it. Then they drew names and he happened to get the one person who despised him. He went ahead with his plan, and when she opened it she said, "Somebody hates me." That moment upstaged the person who opened a giant chocolate phallus. Bonus, she left the picture on a desk at work and it just happened to be next to some flowers. My partner was off sick, so he missed a meeting with a corporate rep. Rep saw the desk and thought my partner had died, lol. That is hilarious. That couldn't have been more perfect how that played out. Similar serendipitous story. Our Secret Santa last year was fun. But there was one person that wasn't very popular in the place, not because of anything they did, but simply because they were quieter than the rest and everyone else was sort of in a clique. Anyway, you draw a name and if you get yourself you draw again and put your name back in the hat and it's the next person's turn. Because of our scheduling, this name drawing took place over a few days, and I organized it so I chose to just take the last name once everyone else had. I was honestly afraid of being unliked, and that nobody would pick me, because of the cliques, and my name would be left behind, but that was my entire intention, to bring people together a little. Make them experience interacting with someone out of their chosen cliques. Well, the cliques took turns picking each other and left the quiet person's name in the hat. Someone did pick me, but I heard through the office gossip that the quiet person was left behind intentionally. That upset me, so I made sure to get them something that made up for the ostracism. I got them a personalized t-shirt, and some of their favorite candy, and to fill the max spending limit, I bought them holiday scratch-off lottery tickets. I believe the spending limit was $15 and I made sure it was at least that. That person scratched off the tickets at work and won $60. Made their day. I was so happy it worked out, and not only were they included the way they should have been, but they made out like a bandit and got the best gift out of anyone. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts below.